They thought they had banished us forever. But now, finally, we have returned.
To take on an old adversary. Let's take a look at the video. Let's take a look at more of Joshua David Bellin's utterly asinine, nonsensical arguments. Alrighty. I have a few guests in the back room. Please allow me to bring in his sagaciousness, Mr. Drake the Duelist.
He's going right for the crew!
Do you have an SAT word to introduce our next guest?
The ever loquacious Mr. Johan shall be joining us in just a second. There we go.
Never gets old. Never gets old. Never gets old. Jeez.
Sagacious. All right, my sagacious and loquacious friends. Are you ready to dive into the mind of an insanely racist postmodernist nutjob? That's what he is. He is an insane postmodernist nutjob who is probably secretly extremely racist.
Understandable. I would say I'm not prepared at all, but you know, that's just me. That's the tough life right now.
Indeed. Alrighty. Let's get started, shall we? Okay, so we are on chapter 6. This is actually the final chapter of this whole bloody book.
It's the final chapter. Oh, you finally are saying that we're almost done. Done?
Indeed. And then there's a 5-page conclusion. So there's 30 pages for the final chapter and then a 5-page conclusion. So feasibly, we could get finished with this in the next couple of weeks.
Joy to the world.
As finally the ancient text will be revealed. Would it be worth it? They say, and then everybody in the old Tom said, "Never."
No.
That's the short answer.
To the squirrel. Joy to the world. The freak is finished. The stupid is almost complete. Let
You collected them all.
every
Every single one of them.
Prepare him room.
Just
All right, so Seeing Things, the freak on film. Ladies and gentlemen, seeing is believing. Impresario Carl Denham to the theater artist, King Kong, 1933. One of the most unsettling images in fantasy film occurs in the climactic shot of Freaks, 1932. Director of Todd Browning's follow-up to Dracula, infamous for its casting of actual sideshow performers as members of a circus troupe. Okay. A stunt that fueled charges of indecency and led to the film's removal from theatrical distribution for 30 years. Freaks tells the story of the love of Hans, a circus dwarf, for Cleopatra, a trapeze artist who encourages infatuation only so that she may abuse his generosity. Ultimately discovering that Hans is heir to a fortune, Cleopatra and her lover The strongman Hercules devised a plan for her to marry Hans. Hans betray him, and marry Hans, poison him, and make off with his wealth. But the other freaks, suspicious after Cleopatra spurns them and humiliates Hans at the wedding feast, learn her scheme and exact gory revenge, killing Hercules, and they transform Cleopatra into the ultimate freak. Okay, there is a okay, so there's a thing. So throughout this chapter, I use the word freak rather than more sensitive locutions such as person with physical disabilities for two principal reasons. Most simply, the characters I discuss, such as Beauty and the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, are not disabled by most standards, though they may be seen as freaks. More important, and I wish to recall the reprehensible manner in which those seen as physically different have historically been portrayed and treated. The term freak conveys this history more boldly and succinctly than any other.
Okay.
Disclaimer, I'm using shorthand because I'm quoting people.
Yeah, honestly, I only really have one.
You see, I'm only using the N-word because that's what people said.
What?
Yeah, honestly, I'm just like...
I caught zero logic in all that. And that last bit, pure gibberish.
Well, basically.
Uh,
Those words are very big. I know. You use them way too much.
Okay, so the culminating shot, in which the mutilated Cleopatra is unveiled in her pen by a carny Barker, is truly shocking. Legless, feathered, dressed as an asexual doll-like jacket, the once beautiful woman squawks and clucks, flopping about her pen on paddle-like claws, her blind, unfocused eyes staring sightlessly from a palsied, androgynous face. As a personal testament to the power of this image, I first encountered it in a book on horror films when I was a child, and though I did not see the film itself until almost 30 years later. The image remained with me the entire time. Jeez Louise, movie!
Yeah, I just want to point out the statistical assumption Bellin is making. It's like, what better way to represent all of cinema than a movie that was banned for 30 years? Because that's representative of cinema.
It's like,
he is very late to the party, in fact.
It's like, you show a book to people and then it then turns out it has been banned from stores for almost 80 years. Like, this book represents the common folk today. It's like 80 years ban. Yeah, maybe you should, try to find a more modern book that might, not have those values. Because probably those values are way too old, honestly. Even in 20 years, things have changed.
Mm-hmm.
So probably it would not be very smart of, cinema. If you would say well, Avatar 1 would be a very good representation of films today, that would be an extreme lie. Because that's not what now is being represented in the common theater. Most of the movies that have been released lately from Hollywood and all that stuff have been lacking in lots of areas. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, also, I haven't seen this one. Have you?
I have not heard of it.
No one's seen this one.
Yes, you could have
American.
informed us like a week ago, so we should be able to watch it and be up to date. But
Well, I
I
know
guess
Yeah,
on
that's
I
not worth
gave
it.
up after that, after wasting all that time with that one 12 Monkeys movies, and how
I-
watching that and getting understanding what the plot was absolutely pointless.
It was still good. The plot was the plot was good, but his way of
He missed
thinking is absolutely totally the opposite of what the fucking movie tries to represent. And it's stupid. Like you could have done so much more with that time travel issue, but no, you didn't want to go for time travel. Jeez. But yeah, probably not being
So,
worth it to see that movie. At
yeah.
least, done. Can you maybe pull on the summary for it, maybe on Wikipedia or something like that, so that we at least have a common understanding of what the fuck he's talking about, and then see
Uh-huh.
even with the Wikipedia that would be horribly wrong.
Sure. So this is apparently the image of what they do to Cleopatra as revenge for what happened. And apparently they chop off her legs.
What?
It seems as though this is what American Horror Story was referencing.
Lol.
Because, yeah, that bit's freaking weird. And let me see, there's a... Okay. Which one is Dennis O'Hare? 1 second. Dennis O'Hare. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, so yeah, this is how he ends. His arms basically just truncated. I just kind of noped out of that show after that. I was just like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done here. I'm not interested anymore. This is just gross. But Freaks, 1932. Okay, so it's a vehicle for Lon Chaney. I don't know if this is really going to say anything about anything.
Probably not.
I don't think he's even going to mention the movie. After this, so I don't think there's a point in it.
Well, at least keep it. At least give us a summary of it, so that we at least have some bright idea what the movie's about, and then we can compare it to what he is thinking about it anyway.
Probably just leave it tabbed and go back to it if we need it.
Yeah, I don't even think he's going to. I don't think he's going to do it through the rest of this book. Honestly, I think he just put that as his opening.
Getting a little tired there, aren't you, Josh?
Yes, using big giant words, and then hopefully try to see if somebody points out your mistakes.
Yeah.
Because, well, they at least took the effort of looking it up.
WTF did I just hear? Is this the Borman script again? No, this is kind of worse. At least John Borman's script, you can laugh at it. This was supposed to be an intellectual person's doctoral thesis or some crap.
Intellectual? Really? Is it intellectual? Is it?
It's definitely pseudo-intellectual. We know that for sure.
Yeah, intellectually retarded, you mean?
Mm-hmm. Pseudo-intellectual. Yeah. The power of the shut from Freaks, I would argue, derives from two specific two significant and interrelated elements characteristic of certain films featuring the freak or monstrous human. On the one hand, the shot incarnates the aspect of revolutionary reversal, in which barriers dividing the normal from freak are overrun. On the other hand, the shot functions to emphasize conventions of seeing in the double sense that it cites the spectral quality of this sideshow and implicates the film's viewers in a similar prurient voyeurism.
Lol.
Okay. That makes no sense.
Translation, remember The Condemned? Anybody else remember that?
No, enlighten me.
Okay, it's a Stone Cold Steve Austin movie. It's essentially Hunger Games with the wrestling performers.
Interesting. Okay, let's keep going. Indeed, in an important sense, the shot structures freaks as a whole, returning to the frame in which the film began, in the which Barker beckons his audience to peer into Cleopatra's pen with the words, "You're about to witness the most amazing, most astounding living monstrosity of all time." The climactic shot fills the desires not of the viewers on screen, for they have already looked into the pen, but of the viewers of the movie house. In both respects, then, the scene hinges on exposing the constructed nature of social roles and roles, ways of seeing and being. It not only emphasizes the arbitrary and self-interested ways that of interested character and relations of power grounded in physical difference, but uncovers the corporation of film and its audience in the illusion that the social fantasy of insider/outsider is necessary and real.
Lol.
I would concur with this. Let's just keep going, shall we? So, throughout this study, I have explored ways in which fantasy films participate in the dichotomy of insider/outsider, yet as Browning film, which appeared a year before King Kong, suggests, the dominant fantasy film tradition of social alienation may have been contested from the start by another tradition, one capable of performing alternative, even potentially liberatory social functions. In the previous chapter, after I broached the potential of counter-tradition in fantasy madness films. In this final chapter, I wish to argue that certain fantasy films centering on the freak may work to challenge processes of social alienation by bringing those processes to the surface, holding them up for inspection, indeed reflecting on film's culpability in promoting them.
Okay, side point. He said certain films.
Yes,
Meaning
correct.
by his own admission, he's cherry picking. So I don't know what he's trying to prove. Those like certain films. Is like, has he been using that kind of terminology all book?
Yep.
Certain films. So what's the point? Is he trying to indict an industry or not?
I don't know what it is, honestly. Like, the only thing that in his summary is this: he's just pointing out, reconsiders the cultural significance by investing in films seemingly divorced from reality and presented in a context of timelessness, are in reality coded in the social practices and beliefs of the era of their production.
And
I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. He is an idiot.
He's just using big words to confuse people. That's my obvious opinion now. But
I would concur with that he's basically just making up stuff because he wants to sound smart, because he has nothing.
it's a big brain move.
And the underlying thought isn't even all that clever. It's obvious.
Yeah. Yeah, this is where Red. Yeah, I think might be where she got the idea, unless it's been bandied about before 2005, which is always possible. It's dumb, but eh.
Yeah, probably.
Let's see. So, In my discussion of Browning's film, by bringing these processes to whole, holding them up for inspection, indeed reflecting on the film's culpability and promoting them. As my discussion of Brown's film suggests, I believe that such films accomplish their inspection and introspection action both through narrative means, inversion and subversion of the self and later other divide, and through practices of cinematic self-reference or reflexivity, through identifying and interrogating their viewers' habits of seeing and their own habits of representation. Okay. These films, I will argue, are distinguished by what seems to be typically termed meta-cinema, processes by which the film calls attention to its audience's own viewing or its own signifying practices, and thereby fosters a break in the audience's taken for granted acceptance of what it sees on screen. Okay.
The stupid normies think what's on the magic box is real.
Basically.
Yeah, seems like it. Yeah. In metacinema, the audience potentially becomes aware of cinema's artifice.
Yeah. Also, that is not what metacinema means.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Metacinema, meta being the Latin for of itself, would be cinema of cinema. It's essentially one of the closest things we have to metacinema is like making of, like essentially DVD extras. That's metacinema.
Okay, that's actually a good point. Okay. Cinema's artifice, or the cinema itself is artificial, a frame, a way of seeing. Likewise, the audience, rather than being encouraged, urged in acts of alienating others, may be alienated from its own preconceptions. That is ridiculous. Okay. Finally, the film itself may be alienated, exposed to the social construct. Both product and producer of its social context, rather than, as film is generally portrayed, an objective slice of reality or a fantastic escape from it. And if it seems that Italic's fantasy film might be unable to mount enough realism to rupture that realism, the singular relationship I have shown the genre to bear toward the real, a relationship that lends not only visionary scenarios but patently unreal social propositions, the appearance of the real may make fantasy film entirely suited for the as an expose for social alienation and of its own role in sustaining it. Toward that end, it is worth noting that it is not solely a handful of freak films that deploy metacinema. Rather, one might consider such self-referencing moves as one of the salient features of the fantasy genre. I have remarked, for instance, that on the keenly visual orientation of a number of films in the study, King Kong, Jurassic Park, 12 Monkeys, are all concerned with ways of seeing and the function of the gaze as an instrument of power and oppression.
You're gonna have to do that one again because I missed that.
Okay. So how it works is this. Toward the end of fantasy film as an expose of social alienation, it is worth noting that it is not solely a handful of freak films that deploy meta cinema. Rather, one might consider self-referencing moves one of the salient features of the fantasy genre.
So essentially, what he's essentially whinging about is that there's a feedback loop between cultural stereotypes and media, and the media feedbacks into the stereotypes, and the stereotypes feedback into the media. I wonder which stereotypes he actually does believe in, and which he holds to that actually are complete bunk. Like the notion that, say, all of America is racist.
That would be very funny.
It would be. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he believes a bunch of bunk crap already. And how much of that is based on the media he consumes, which is dominated by people like him.
Yeah,
Yep.
True. Yeah, you're not wrong, honestly. Let me see. So, and it's basically saying Jurassic Park, King Kong, and 12 Monkeys are all concerned with ways of seeing and the function of the gaze at GAZE, not the
Yeah, and I want to know about the function of the gaze in that way.
yeah. Yeah, true.
Anyway.
Yeah, let's keep. Well, it's going to be a terrible visual anyway because it's difficult because I have a physical copy. I would like to, but it would be it would not be very efficient if I were to do that. So at the same time, I've demonstrated that some films, such as The Wizard of Oz, possess distinctly self-referential leanings, thanks in kind to the in particular to its Emerald City sequences. Oz, I've suggested, may be treated as 1930s Hollywood. It's half serious auto analysis. I have suggested it maybe treat and given Kong's film within a film plot. It is not surprising that critics have called attention to the self-reflexive elements in it. Bruce Cadwin, for example, analyzes how one of the film's most famous scenes, the screen test aboard ship, confuses, but weirdly, con is in parentheses, which is odd, the filming of the movie with the filming in the movie. As the audience watches from the perspective of Denham's camera, the director's voice provides Darrow with instructions similar to those Cooper must have offered Rye, who often was reacting to something she could not see. Along the same lines, Kong's lavish use of rear screen projection is suggestive. Many of the film's monster shots were achieved through rear screen technique, which O'Brien first employed in the test reel by which Cooper sold Kong to RKO. Yeah, that's true. As Jeff Roven points out, beyond its comparative simplicity, the rear screen processes an advantage over the mat in allowing the player to see the menace to which he or she is reacting. By the same token, it has the effect of allowing the viewer to view the film's filming, to watch on a screen the actors watching things on a screen. It thus seems fitting that Kong attacks the photographers whom Denham, votary of the visual image that he is, has lined up for his monster premiere. For in doing so, one might argue Kong attacks the processes by which fantasy films packages the monstrous, fabricating and blowing it up to gigantic proportions to justify ideologies and practices of social alienation.
So King Kong attacked the cameras to make a point?
I guess so.
Hear thee, I am the King of Kong. I don't want this woman in my life, but I will take hostage of her.
No flash photography, please. Next time, I will ask less kindly.
Sounds about right.
Rawr.
Fair enough. In meta-cinematic moments such as these, then one glimpses the potential of fantasy film to frame its own visions, to turn its sights into insights as the film genre most deeply, one might say indistinguishably, affects with the spectacular qualities of the medium. Fantasy films may be particularly suited to reminding audiences that their monstrous beings are not visually or socially real, but are sophisticated or orchestrated illusions. The thing that is not real is not real.
Dun dun dun.
Color me
Malchuk.
surprised. Sod off, you idiot.
It was all in your head all along. Ba-da-da.
I hate this. I hate this moron. In this respect, as Garrett Stewart contends, meta-cinema in fantasy film may serve to talk us out of the truisms of ready identification by which we are lured to the films in the first place, and may thereby provoke reflections on the ideologies by which we see and so lead our lives. And if this is true, then perhaps the self-critical current in fantasy film is not a minority tradition after all. Perhaps applying meta-cinematic readings to all the films I have thus engaged thus far might be a means of challenging or even overturning the paradigm I have thus far pursued. You have pursued nothing. You have made no salient points. You are a complete idiot. Why did you get published? Did you blow off the deed of publishing or something? This whole thing makes no sense. Ugh.
We must analyze the cultural foundations of obnoxious term papers.
Basically.
Yeah, sounds about right. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely right. Yeah, let's go with that. Okay. Let's just keep going. All right. The film. Okay. And if this is true, then perhaps the self-critical current in fantasy film is not a minority tradition after all. Perhaps applying meta-cinematic readings. Okay, we already read that. Before one takes such a radical step, however, several complicating factors must be considered. To begin with, if meta-cinema is pervasive at all, it may be that it is no more than a convention, a pitch, even a means of enhancing rather than attenuating processes of dominant group identification and minority group alienation.
Oh, look at the
right.
little Bellin. He's trying to steal man. It's adorable.
Yeah, kind of. He really sucked. He really sucks at doing that. It's not a publishing house. So the people who published it was the Southern Illinois University was the people that published this asinine garbage.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing that this idiot came up with this. I think he was just strapped for time and just said, "Hey, I can make a bunch of movies, movie stuff. It'll be great. They'll
Amazing.
the idiot got lucky and managed to."
They
They
never
still did
really
it.
suspected this was actually fucking retarded.
Apparently not. It's evidently not. No. It's kind of amazing that he just actually thought this stuff.
I can't keep getting away with this.
Anyway,
Okay. At the same time, if one admits to the revisory potential, oh,
is the audio okay over there?
yeah, sorry, 1 second. One second, I'm just trying to figure it out. I'm just trying to read through this. Okay. Okay. Even if one admits the revisionary potential of the metacinema, it may be a strategy. The strategy expresses itself variably throughout the genre, perhaps sometimes being no more than tomfoolery, while at other times being a significant element of self-critique. Okay, and in fact, I would argue that this is the case. Though it may be true that metacinema exists in many fantasy films, the freak films I will consider in this chapter utilize its techniques to such an extent and in such distinctive ways as to cast doubt on its inherently transformative power. But to add a final complication, even in such films, metacinematic techniques prove inadequate to cancel out processes of alienation. Even in its most self-conscious and self-consuming, metacinema cannot overthrow traditions of alienation that pervade fantasy films and its social milieu. Okay. Okay. Indeed, one might contend that, like all films in this study, metacinematic freak films are engaged not in short-circuiting, but in supercharging hallucinatory propositions about social outsiders.
What the hell does he think short-circuiting is?
Well, normally, when you put one wire together, then suddenly it does boom.
I don't think he has enough of an electrical background to make that metaphor competently.
It's like putting a fork into a socket. It is a very terrible move.
Yeah, continuing with this crap show, or that, like the madness films I examined in the previous chapter, the anxiety attending their radical potential makes such films particularly active in shoring up the categories of the distant difference they transgress. That sentence, I don't understand what that sentence means. That just doesn't make the remotest
One
bit of
more
sense.
time.
Okay, so the madness films I examined in the previous chapter. after the anxiety attending their radical potential makes such films particularly active in shoring up the categories of difference they transgress.
Especially active in shoring up the categories of differences.
Like I said, this doesn't make any sense.
Indeed.
Okay. At the same time, however, I believe that there is value in concluding a study on alienation in fantasy film by considering films that more productively than any other I have explored in these pages.
I have constructed this in these pages. Fuck.
He thinks he's been constructive.
It's very constructive indeed.
Yeah, kind of. I think he's delusional, clearly. Man, this guy's an idiot. Man.
Something about constructive.
Okay, so attempt to take a critical standpoint on the tradition on which they are a part. Okay.
Yeah, essentially subversion movies. It's like embryonic Ryan Johnson.
Yeah, sounds about right, actually. This chapter differentiates from the previous one largely on an emphasis, whereas in the previous chapter I insisted on the film's alienating processes, notwithstanding their progressive intimations. Here I acknowledge the film's alienating work while striving to discover their power to frame more progressive visions. Okay, so he's one of those people, on top of being one of that group of people. Great. I love it. Okay. In this sense, though I continue to believe that no fantasy film succeeds fully in neutralizing the insider-outsider dichotomy, I advance the hopeful proposition by making the dichotomy visible.
The insider, I am almost positive he's bullshit there. Insider-outsider dichotomy, what exactly does he mean by that? And he's saying no film has ever explored something like that?
I think that what he's saying is that no fantasy film succeeds fully in neutralizing the insider-outsider dichotomy.
Neutralizing the insider-outsider dichotomy? Yeah, I call definite bullshit on that. That's like the entire premise of Gundam's Universal Century is doing that. The whole idea is it's like a war story and you see both sides, where both sides have humanizing elements and both sides have non-humanizing elements.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that you haven't, it's not that there isn't any, Bellin. You haven't found it yet. Keep looking.
Yeah, kinda.
Maybe just a little bit.
Okay. I advance the hopeful proposition by making that dichotomy visible. Some few fantasy films may offer viewers the opportunity to conceptualize and perhaps even realize a world in which social equality may no longer be a fantasy.
That's also depending on where you live in the world, because in order for that to apply globally, you need a global empire to enforce it. Which would, spoilers, not be great for equality.
Yeah.
Don't tell them that.
That is a very good question. I honestly do not know. This.
That's a Pope hat on a sword impulse? I don't know. That profile picture is way more interesting than this book.
Yeah, I
Yes.
honestly don't know. He hasn't really brought. He's only brought up Freaks, a film from the 1930s. Wait. Okay, so Trip actually sent me something. Apparently, there is a video on how you get published via the Southern University.
Years.
What? Is that a thing?
Extremely complex
Yeah.
process. It takes a team with a variety of special skills. In the beginning, an acquisitions editor receives a manuscript and reviews it for subject matter, scholarship, quality, and length, and or rejects it. If accepted, the editor sends the manuscript to a pair of experts in the field.
Look at those eyes. Look at those googly eyes.
Experts
Oh
have
my
to
god.
sign off on it before
A
it can be
man with a
considered for
mission.
publication.
Death.
If the reviewers find problems, the author may need to rewrite parts of the manuscript. After that, the manuscript goes back to the reviewers. Once they're satisfied, the manuscript is presented to an editorial board, which either rejects the project or provides final approval for publication. This doesn't happen overnight. Getting all these approvals can take the better part of a year, which can be frustrating for authors. But the process doesn't end here. Once the board approves a manuscript for publication, the project is turned over to the editing, design, and production department. At this stage, the manuscript is copy edited for clarity, grammar, and style. Once that's finished, the text is designed and
Well, we can pretty clearly see that none of these elements are present.
That or this entire board is run by non-English speakers.
Or just people with deficient brain capacities. That's just dumb, what he just said. That is incredibly stupid.
artwork is prepared for printing. How do you know a text has been designed well when you don't notice the design at all? A good design is invisible, unobtrusive, silently helping the reader understand the material. This all comes together during typesetting, when a compositor carefully places the text and images where they'll be seen in the book. Proofs of these pages, essentially a draft of the design, are reviewed by the author and an editor. Once they're satisfied, the book's interior is ready for the printer. But a book isn't just a block of text and images. It needs
Bellin,
which is created by a designer. Everyone likes choices, so the designer creates 2 or 3 possible covers. These circulate around the office for feedback. Once the winning cover design is chosen, it's shared with the author for final approval. Authors are expected to go out and promote sales of their books, so it's important they're happy with the cover design. While the text and cover are in development, the marketing department stays busy sending out samples to book reviewers, hoping to get early publicity for the book. They also educate the sales reps and work closely with the author to create promotional materials. They're also responsible for obtaining the blurbs or short publicity notices, which they pass along to the designer to add to the back cover. Once the blurbs have been added, the now complete cover, both front and back, is circulated for final approval. At that point, the text and cover files are passed along to the printer. The printer sends the text to one printing press and the cover to another. Covers go to a special press.
and after this is basically just Gutenberg but higher tech.
Basically,
Where was
control
this?
over color and image quality.
Where was this
Once
board when
printed,
Neil
the text
James
and
wanted to
covers
publish
meet
her
up in the
books?
bindery where they're assembled in
I
the
don't know.
books.
Good
The
question.
books are placed in cartons and sent to the warehouse for storage.
And they're monitored by top men. Top men.
Okay, let's let it. But yeah, it seems like this went through a good amount of work.
And they managed to okay a style that basically has like one paragraph break per page.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's accurate. Yeah. Yeah, well, it probably works differently in fiction, but there should be more of this. Okay, so we're into the next section. We've only gotten through 4 pages, boys.
Wow.
The history of the freaks. The history of the freak is a history of visual exploitation. Okay, coming out of the gate swinging. Admittedly, this is somewhat true, but let's examine what he says. Or to put it in another way, it is the fact of visual exploitation that accounts for the history of the freak. The latter is inconceivable without the former. To a certain extent, of course, all social monsters are defined or designed in terms of supposedly unimpeachable marks of visual difference. As this book is illustrated in the particular case of cinema, visualization is a particularly potent tool in the processes of alienation.
I wonder what he thinks of blaxploitation, which is basically the overrepresentation of African American actors for the sake of exploitation through essentially fetishization.
What?
Your Blades, your the Sam Jackson one where he quotes the Bible.
Pulp Fiction.
Thank you.
There's also other stuff like Dolomite could be an example of blaxploitation.
Or pretty much anything Snoop Dogg has ever been in, ever.
Yeah, true. As this book is illustrated in particular case of cinema, tool 2. It is not the freak alone whose monstrous otherness. I think I might have found a typo since it's TOO, not TWO, which is kind of funny. It is not the freak alone whose monstrous otherness has been showcased within lavish public ceremonials. The racial others of Kong's decade, for example, have a grotesque history of minstrel shows and lynching bees, not to mention photographic. Yeah, he's likening King Kong to minstrel shows and.
I caught the minstrel show a lynching bee. What's that? You got to lynch 5 black people in a row in order to win a prize?
Apparently, a lynching bee.
It's like a spelling bee, but then for lynching.
Yeah, that's
okay, okay. So it's a giant party centered around the spectacle of hanging and burning a black person in front of a full crowd, which would.
So like what Nero did to the Christians.
Yeah, which would often further desecrate the body by carrying parts of it off or destroying the corpse in a white rage.
So basically, barbarians got it.
Yeah, that was definitely a very, very, very bad time. Oh yes, the King Kong. Yeah, it's comparative to a lynching, which is terrible.
Yeah, because usually lynchings are done with planes with machine guns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was Godzilla lynched?
We never know. He was kind of sus, though.
Yeah, Godzilla was only murdered in sort of a metaphorical way.
Because he got better. Yeah.
No, because it's like the movie completely did not understand it. No nuclear breath. Bullshit.
Yeah,
yes.
Right.
I believe King Kong was the only one with no any special abilities but just being big and strong and powerful.
So Toho got him, as I said last time we touched this, but
yep.
Yeah. Alrighty, let's keep going, shall we? Okay, so in relation to the lynching bees, and minstrel shows to attest to the centrality of public spectacle in the making of monsters. Nor, for that matter, should one forget that the other categories of difference may be intertwined with, indeed constituent of, the category of the freak, racial and sexual differences, in particular fundamental to freak shows, sometimes to such an extent these differences alone may make the freak. Visual exploitation, it seems evident, is fundamental to the process of framing monsters. It's the title of the book!
He said it.
Oh my god, he did! Ah!
So the is a metaphor. Godzilla versus Kong is a metaphor of the violence against Asians committed by.
Lol.
Actually, some film analysts think Godzilla is actually a metaphor for America, though it may depend on the movie and the timeline, especially in the Millennium Era. Because there were like 5 different Godzilla continuities in that era alone.
Okay, still, the case of the freak is not wholly unique. It is nonetheless special, for it is still the freak. For it's the freak alone that is constituted properly.
Constituted?
Constituted, principally, one might say, wholly through public exhibitions of seeing.
Public exhibitions of seeing.
Yeah,
It's just a public exhibition of seeing.
Yeah,
It's like
An
watching
exhibition involves seeing. That is so redundant.
No,
Yeah.
maybe he has like an orb where he looks at it and be like, yes, I can see these people in this expedition.
Oh, an exhibition of seeing. Fuck
Yes.
blind people.
Well, it's a legendary artifact. Don't worry about it.
Like, as opposed to what? A petting zoo?
Probably.
Or in many cases, probably a heavy petting zoo. So in the case
Heavy
of Mr.
petting
Jeffrey,
zoo.
That's a different kind of exhibitionism.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
Exhibition of seeing.
That's.
Where did you go to last summer? I went to the expedition of seeing. What did you see? I saw a lot. Oh,
I saw some things, man. And some stuff.
for fuck's sake.
Exhibition of seeing.
Yeah,
Only
this
you
guy
go
is.
to an expedition to see stuff. Therefore,
This guy
it's an
is-
expedition to see.
This guy is an idiot. Like, he just sounds like he is. He's just trying to sound like he's smart. It's kind of pathetic, really.
You could also go for like the artifact of boots of walking, you know?
These boots are made for walking, and that's just what they'll do.
Yep.
One of these
basically.
days, these boots are gonna walk all over you. Yeah, let's keep going. It is the freak alone that needs not only to be believed, but also seen to be. Okay, in her study of disability discourse, Rosemary Garland Thompson argues that the body of the freak is a cultural text that is interpreted, inscribed with meaning, indeed made within social relations of power expressed through the differential equation of seeing / being seen, a visual let me see. A visual disequilibrium. Is that even a freaking word?
Disequilibrium?
Yeah.
Use it in a sentence. His sentence.
Okay, so a visual disequilibrium that Thompson finds most plainly, but by no means singularly evident in the antebellum American freak show.
That's not even a sentence. That's. Are you sure that's the sentence? Like it starts with a capital and ends in a period?
Okay, so it says, well, it's a sentence that's it's a massive run-on sentences. It's at least 4 lines of text.
And yet it's still a sentence fragment. Read it back one more time just to make sure.
Okay, so in her study of disability discourse, Rosemary Garland Thompson argues that the body of the freak is a cultural text that is interpreted, inscribed with meaning, indeed made within social relations of power, expressed through differential of the differential equation of seeing/being seen, a visual disequilibrium that Thompson finds most plainly but by no means singularly evident in the antebellum American freak show.
A differential equation? That is not what that means.
Yeah.
That's calculus, which, for a very, very crude layman's definition, calculus is about determining the rates of change, whereas algebra is concerned mainly with the rates of change themselves. Calculus is determining the rates at which those changes occur, more essentially acceleration versus velocity, if you will. And specifically differential equations, the purpose of a differential equation is to find the area underneath a curve. What in the fuck does any of that have to do with any of this?
Nothing whatsoever. It's just stupid.
He saw the word differential and thought, ooh, that's a word I can use.
Yeah. Particularly malleable thanks to the significant variation of. Let me try to put this in terms. Okay, so significant potential for variation in the human form, and the far greater potential for variation in cultural norms. The freak operates as a sort of monster of convenience, a visual representation suitable for framing in any number of contexts. In two respects, then, the exhibition of the freak exemplifies Donna Haraway's dictum that bodies are maps of power and identity. On the one hand, the very act of exhibiting abnormal bodies signifies relations of inequality between the freak and the viewers who are, through this transaction, enabled to identify themselves as physically normal. On the one hand,
those who are freaks lack power.
I guess so.
I'm going to remember that because he teased bringing up Beauty and the Beast before.
Yeah, true.
Oh, yeah, and not to mention King Kong.
Mm-hmm.
King Kong was not lacking for power. He was lacking for body armor.
And intelligence. Okay. On the other hand, the exhibition of those designated freaks extends beyond considerations of bodily difference, narrowly defined to act as a compressed dramatic spectacle of the social order, ideal social order, with the condition of the diseased or deformed body, producing by contrast the constitution of the sound healthy body politic.
Spell?
Oh, just regular politic.
Okay. Body politic. I think he may have heard that word. I'm pretty sure it's not spelled the way that you think it's spelled.
Politic.
Oh, I'm used to hearing it with a K because that's very Soviet talk.
Yeah. So it's basically just the constitution of the sound, healthy body politic. The freak show thus highlights the special but crucial sense in which, as I've argued throughout this book, works of fantasy achieve the illusion that seeing is believing. Seeing the monstrous freak facilitates not only belief in this abominable a wonder, but the far more wonderful and abominable belief that the alienating ideologies constructed through the freak show are not constructed but real. Man, this whole thing is freaking confusing.
Yes.
Yeah. I also have a question of how must Bellin react to Superman, who is an incredibly alien creature and yet looks just like a normal Kansas kid. Like Bellin, if there is even a 1% chance that he is a threat, we must take it as an absolute certainty that King Kong was racist.
Clearly.
There is no question. But only more answers.
Indeed. Okay, so from classical times to the present, the freak has functioned in this way in the imagination of the West. As a figure through which ideologies are created. Okay, a figure through which the ideologies of physical-cultural soundness versus depravity, order versus chaos have been defined and demonstrated. Okay. During the medieval period, and at least through the Renaissance, the dominant tradition of freak viewing construed the freak as a divine hieroglyphic, a visual symbol through which the Almighty exhibited his will, wrath, for all to see. A particularly striking, though to modernize, preposterous demonstration of the visible freak's role in enforcing social orthodoxy appears in an anonymous 1647 broadside concerning the birth of a child, or rather a monster with two heads, grown severally, somewhat distinct from one another, bearing the similitude of a man and a woman, the eyes standing in the middest, middest, but this is really this is a quotation, so it's fine. Okay. They, having but one piece, cannot be unfitly be paralleled with the horned monster Polyphemus. The arms had their growths in several places, being of great dimensions, but very small, having annexed to their wrists great talons like to a griffin's. From the secret parts was shewed to be both male and female, downwards all hairy like your satyrs. In part, all the parts about it were monstrous and ill-shapen, insomuch that it shook into a quaking terror all those that were eyewitnesses of this foreign production. The monster, with a hoarse but loud voice, was heard to speak these words, being ever after silent, I am thus deformed for the sins of my parents. Okay.
Yeah, which, by the way, wouldn't have been biblically true anyway.
Yeah, there's some definite proofs in the Bible that this is not what any Christian should believe, and that anyone who does is an idiot.
Yeah, case in point, because we can actually cite examples. Are you thinking of the one I'm thinking of, where Jesus and his disciples come across a either a blind or a crippled man, I forget which. And the disciples asked Jesus, who sinned to make this man blind or disabled, his father or his mother? And Jesus said it was neither. It was the fact that there's sin in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah, that would not have been orthodox whatsoever. That would have been a corruption at best.
Yeah. Contrived through this hodgepodge of pagan parts clearly is its presence signifies the cultural function of the freak. In the early modern times, the sight of the perverted body, along with, in this case, its carefully scripted line, was proposed to invoke holy terror and presumably repentance in all eyewitnesses, and is to the production a word as telling ambidextrous as the monster itself, with its suggestion that of both natural gestation and theater exhibition.
As ambidextrous as the monster, it's... Run that clause by me again.
Okay, so a word as telling ambidextrous as the monster itself, with its suggestion of both natural gestation and theatrical presence.
As ambidextrous as the monster itself... Bellin, ambidextrous just means that you don't have a dominant right or left hand. That's all that means.
This is true. That the conjuring of visually terrifying freaks as a means of regulating social behavior was not confined to the popular broadside tradition, as evidenced by one of the earliest attempts to systemize the study of congenital abnormalities. French physician Amber O's Parade on Monsters and Marvels. The bestial acts of atheists, Parry announces, are responsible for the birth of hideous monsters that bring great shame to those that look upon them. Consistent with this querulous conviction, by viewing the freak, he could threaten the onlooker of abnormality, could threaten the looker with sort of deformity, by proxy. Pierre begged his readers' indulgence. Now I will refrain from writing here about about several other monsters engendered from such grist, together with their portraits, which are so hideous and abominable, not only to see but also hear tell of, that due to their gruesome loathsomeness, I have neither wanted to relate them nor to have them portrayed. Wait, why is he mentioned? He hasn't yet, but yeah. It's pretty close, yeah. Let me see something. Okay. It is worth noting, however, not only the doctor's disclaimer titillates as much as abstains, but that his text is littered with all manner of spectacular freaks. Clearly enough, the injunction against disclosure was at war with the monitory and voyeuristic imperatives of Revelation. For folk as well as clinical observers, the freak as being able to attract and to repel the curious gaze, and in so doing exhibit or to exhort social power relations, of which bodily difference was both a prominent category and a general prefiguration. At the same time, if the role of the freak was to exhibit the sanctity of physical and cultural relations of power, it is no marvel the body of the freak moved beyond the printed page to appear in exhibitions of another sort. The public displays that predated the more elaborate spectacles of the late 19th and early 20th century sideshow. Such exhibitions were common through the fairs, pubs, and the byways. Time to rate a reference in The Tempest, when Truculio muses of Caliban that in London would this monster make a man, any strange beast there makes a man. The pun on make a man not only suggests the profitability of the early modern freak shows, but the fact that the nature of the freak was to make, by contrast, the figure of the normal or natural man. Due to the 18th and 19th centuries, the fascination with the freak continued unabated in both Europe and the US. Indeed, discourses and practices of freak exhibition burgeoned during this period, disseminating throughout all levels, sites, and sanctums of modern culture.
Does he have any citations on any of this?
Nope, he does not.
So it's all speculation and all what?
Pretty much, yeah.
For fuck's sake.
And really, like, we've got some measure of historical documents about all this, but he's just not citing any sources for this. Like, he never does. It's kind of like most of his let's see.
So it's all speculative. Therefore, it's actually not even worth it to hear him out on it.
Yeah, it's like
Because his
anything
opinion is
he's
fucking retarded.
whinging about regarding like old freak shows of the past would have helped if there was any kind of documentation regarding public perception thereof. Maybe people back then knew that it was just as shady as we would consider it now.
Yeah, it was shady, but then again, I believe the freak shows actually treated their freaks pretty well.
Sometimes it would kind of. I think it would very much depend on the show.
Yeah, probably.
Since it was definitely one of their only ways to get money, but it was not a good life. There's a real he has a bunch of works cited throughout this, but the I don't. This is. It'll just say. This is just so much weird stuff.
Everybody knows that a carnival is never be trusted. Most of the games are rigged. Then most of the people will try to frame you for something like stealing your money or whatever.
Yeah, they do have a lot of works cited, but it's a little bit confusing to try and sort through like what exactly he means by each of these.
Yeah, but he's making like such declarative statements. It would be nice if you would like cite a historian. This is extremely common when talking about like ancient histories. Is to cite like Herodotus or Plato or somebody.
Yeah.
What he should have done is like, all of this happened according to Article 5897 in the book Big Steve Coming Out Live, Yeah, that would be a good one. Because, there is nothing to look at. I'm way too tired for this. Oof. I have been doing exercise today, and it actually hurted my muscles big time.
Yeah, I feel that.
Okay, let's keep going. We've the freak shows ended because of the abuses of the performance armors. Yeah, that's true. That is fair.
That, and a lot of people were no longer interested in it. Actually, the popularity went also down.
Yeah.
When you have different types of entertainment that is more interesting than the freak shows.
Yeah, definitely. There's a whole lot of things that are way more interesting than a freak show. Freak shows are honestly kind of boring when you really get right down to it. It's like a museum where you stare at people who have physical abnormalities. That's all it is. Okay, let's see. So let's keep going. All right, let's see. Okay, let's see. So thus it was not only in the popular productions of the Midway, but also in the cabinets of curiosities patronized by polite society and examining rooms of the doctors who carved out this new space of teratology. Through the body, the freak was collected, inspected, and dissected for the purposes of cultural stimulation, identification, and stratification. Nor can these diverse practices of freak gazing among the high and low cultures be easily distinguished. As Stephen Pender argues, the marvelous and the scientific coincided in the reception and study of monsters and continued to do so long after the monster's absorption by legitimate scientific disclosures in the 18th century, i.e., apparently, this is a quote from No Monsters, page 150. The modern freak show thus exhibits not only the formed body, but more specifically a capricious social architecture in which everybody is implicated and inspected according to dominant cultural ideals and practices. One revealing instance of the overlap and reinforcement among the various discourses of freak watching in the 19th century. I have my own version of a freak show that I lurk on Discord. Yeah, true. Watching in the 19th century appears in the autobiographical reminiscence of Frederick Travis, the Victorian doctor whose fame today rests largely on his having been the deliverer and confidant of Joseph Merrick, the Elephant Man, whereas Travis contemns. Okay, apparently CONTEMNS. Is that even a word? Or is that a typo? I need to search this up.
Contempt.
Contempt. Okay. Okay, apparently condemns. Okay, I guess it's fine.
You
Wait,
must condemn.
condemns?
Yeah.
You must condemned to the new religion. I don't know.
Apparently
something like that.
Okay, apparently condemn is spelled that way. I didn't know that. Okay. I forgot that they had it at the end.
We have learned something. Words have been spelled differently than before.
Mm-hmm.
Dear God.
Period. He condemns the prying lower class porter or ward maid in the London hospital who would periodically open Merrick's door to let curious friends have a peep at the Elephant Man. He misses the irony of Merrick's captivation of or by the cream of high society. Merrick's case attracted much attention in the papers, with the result that he had a constant succession of visitors. Everybody wanted to see him. This continued desire of everybody in London society to see the celebrity freak, and in doing so confirm their distance and difference from him, underscores the argument of the Elephant Man's modern-day interpreters that Merrick has long served a shape-shifting curiosity whose different guises variously suit the needs of particular audiences, genres, and interpreters, in particularly spectacular ways due to his frequent ignorant symptoms and equally fragrant popularity. The Elephant Man underscores the social role of all freaks to make people want to see him, and the seeing to exhibit to stage the grand pageant of social order, deviance, and alienation.
Never mind that his entire notion that the people wanted to see the Elephant Man out of some, how would you describe it, social stratification, was purely his speculation and has no backing anywhere. This is the part of the book where if you had a quote from at least one person, you would use it. But hey, arguments presented without evidence can be dismissed without evidence.
Huh.
Well, I know
So-
one thing for sure. Elephants went through the Alps. That's for sure.
So no, it's just that he was using an archaic version of the word.
For fuck's sake.
Contemn rather
Since
than
when-
nobody uses that word.
Since when are we gonna be playing in the arcade right now? Jeez.
Okay, so in this respect, it is fitting that the culminating act of this Victorian super freak's life, the final exhibition of his social conformity, according to Travis's memoirs, involved Merrick's attendance at a theatrical performance. Travis's description of the Elephant Man's rapture on watching the pantomime is suggestive. To him as a child, with the faculty of make-believe, everything was real. The palace was the home of kings, the princess was of royal blood, the fairies were as undoubted as the children in the street, while the dishes of the banquet were unquestionable gold. He did not like to discuss it as a play, but rather as a vision of some actual world. In this account of the freak spectator viewing a stylized performance of the ideal social order, Travis's memoir suggests the disciplinary imperatives of the freak socialization this passage suggests is signalized by one's ability to accept social fantasy as if real. The apotheosis of this Victorian era freak thus emphasizes the ways in which the freak show activates into institutionalized forms of structured seeing. Okay, to map
Structured seeing?
You know, you're gonna see this guy on Monday and then that guy on Friday. And don't forget the Sunday special.
Also, I'm pretty sure Bellin doesn't know what apotheosis means. It means the becoming of a god, whereas he's probably referring to like the example, or the point where it became the ultimate example, the point where it became clearest. That's not apotheosis. At least not by any definition I've heard. Usually apotheosis refers to some form of ascension. This doesn't sound like ascension. It sounds like at best some idea came to a head. That's not the same thing.
Yeah. To institutionalize forms of structured seeing, to map the extraordinary body within a dominant social protocol, whether in the marketplace, the medical clinic, the museum, or the mediated space of the theater, the freaks comes into being through acts of visual definition, differentiation, and discrimination that simultaneously create a vision of some actual world. Given this vital cultural function, I would challenge those critics who argue that in contemporary times, the freak show has been killed by the change in public attitudes towards caring for the handicapped. True sideshows and dime museums are largely suppressed in the years following World War II due to changing standards of taste, but freak shows were never reliant on public attitudes towards caring for the handicapped, or on the handicapped themselves for that matter, so much as on the public visions of normality and difference, thus in telling that just as the freak show seemed to be decamping from the fairgrounds, The power of film to actualize such visions ensured that the shows would re-emerge with a vengeance in the mediated space of the movie theater. As Martin Norden writes in his survey of disability imagery and Hollywood cinema. Sorry,
Wait, what? So he's technically comparing Freaks to fucking King Kong and all that stuff.
Yeah, never mind that the fact that people are really souring on like mindless spectacle. There was a time when it mattered, but
like
I think 9/11 put paid to that, which Bellin should have known about.
Oh yeah, the two cigars went pretty hard down that day.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
this guy, he tries to make an argument about how dare you treat these monsters badly, because back in the day when the Freaks were around, they were treated the same way.
Well, the Freaks existed. The CGI doesn't.
Well, I don't necessarily saying he's how dare you. He's just saying that this happened.
How this happened? That's even worse.
How dare you?
How dare you? Do you have no words for it? For fuck's sake. This guy, it bothers me how the hell he went, how the hell he...
I think he's legit racist. I think he's just legit racist. Racist and ableist.
Well, he's not saying that he is, but he definitely is.
It's like, I'm not racist, but the book.
Yeah.
No. He's like, I'm not racist. You are.
Okay.
Yes.
That's the implication.
As Martin Norden writes in his survey of disability imagery in Hollywood cinema, the bewildering array of freak figures in the movies collectively serves a function identical to that of earlier freak exhibitions, that of encouraging audience members to perceive the world from the perspective of the normal, and in doing so to enhance the freak figures of isolation and otherness by reducing them to objects of pity, fear, scorn, etc., in short, objects of spectacle, in a means of pandering to the needs of the able-bodied majority.
And again, spectacle is a waning fascination.
Allow me to put my spectacle glasses on. Yes.
It's like, how many people have dumped on the MCU for being mindless spectacle? How many people, far more accurately, dump on DC movies for being mindless spectacle and are correct?
Yeah, DC hasn't produced a good movie in almost, other than Joker,
so did Disney.
15 years.
So did Disney. Disney was also terrible at producing stuff.
Disney has produced much better movie. I would say that Disney has gotten bad over the course of 4 years. Has gotten really bad over the course of 8 years.
8 years. 8 years to ruin a goddamn reputation. Amazing.
3 words. Rings of Power. How much more spectacle can you get and still be completely and totally hollow? That is like the worst substance to cost of production ratio in history.
I think Willow was also very bad. Don't mind me.
Well, Willow didn't have any allusions to trying to be respectable like Rings of Power did.
Willow didn't have a $1 billion budget that I know of. So yeah, spectacle is not as important as you think, Bellin. You should have known that back then. You definitely should know it now.
Yeah.
You know what helps? Making believable characters and having decent storyline.
Yeah. Okay, Paul Longmore refines Norton's argument, noting that representations of the freaking film regularly associate disability with malevolence, as physical handicaps are made the emblems of evil. Longmore establishes that the modern cinema owes more than it realizes to the ancient tradition of reading the freak's body as a proclamation of divine displeasure.
We've already covered why that doesn't make sense in any kind of biblical sense.
For fuck's sake. So you're saying because it is because the people are malformed, therefore the people that are watching gain a pleasure out of them?
Yeah, it's like freaks are a catharsis. It's like, gee, I'm glad I'm not like that. Usually, when you see something novel, it's out of novelty, is the idea that you're gaining from things. This is why, like, there are zoos of literal animals. And when people realize that animals just lined up in random cages weren't actually how they live in the wild, zoos made a conscious choice to make their exhibitions of these animals match as close to their natural environment as possible, because that's part of it. The whole point shifted from just spectacle to education, proving that spectacle is not enough to keep people around. And this bogus idea that social alienation is something that is constantly with us and that we have a constant hunger for. No, we get over it.
Don't forget, by the way, the animals also get less stress from having a natural environment around it, and of course, the breeding programs will then also vastly improve.
Yeah,
Okay.
some animals in captivity get treated pretty nicely. It's like one of the most pampered species in the entire solar system are probably racehorses.
I think
Yeah.
pandas, honestly, pandas as
Okay.
well.
All right. How about we get to page? So we're at 173. I'll get to. We'll try to get. We've gotten about 10 pages down. Let me see.
Jesus, 10 pages of absolute nonsense.
How many did we get through? How many are left? Put it that way.
So we got through 8 pages. And I'm
Not
thinking maybe 2 to 7 more.
2 to 7. I'll take the 2.
2 to 7?
I'll take the 2. That
How
will
are there
make
5
10.
pages of ambiguity?
Well, I'm just thinking like where we
how far
where
we
we-
want to...
Yeah, so I'm thinking maybe get up to, since the whole thing's 30 pages, that chapter's 30 pages.
What?
Oh,
How the
God.
hell did he was able to write anything for 30 pages about this? Jeez.
Well, taking like 29 and a half.
So who's ready for a bingo? Because I believe he's gonna be reconnecting every single thing that he has said to another thing, therefore making more intertwined arguments about something because he already said it in the before.
Bingo!
Yeah, exactly. That's will probably happen.
This is kind of the I would say that this is very much his shotgun approach chapter, where he's just gonna throw out crap all over the place.
Yeah, because he's been so precise before.
Yes,
This
like
is
with the
also
12
true.
monkeys.
Yeah. Okay. 2, as Longmore points out, this association of deformity of body with deformity of soul achieves its summit in fantasy film. The subject of many horror films is fear and loathing of the freak, with most of cinema's most famous monsters, from the Phantom of the Opera to the creature of Frankenstein in the classic Hollywood cinema, to the Joker and the Penguin of Tim Burton's Batman films, taking the form of hideous outcasts to exert gory retribution from the normals. What? Okay.
What?
When the freaks strike back.
Mm-hmm.
Now in cinema.
Browning's Freaks, in fact, provides a case in point. Whatever the film's revisionary energies, the culminating act of freak violence transforms the title characters into the monsters their society has always seen them to be. If it is true that the existence of the freak depends on principles of structured seeing, then it is no wonder that film, a medium that functions precisely by structuring what and how one sees, should have become such a powerful vehicle for the excoriation of the monstrous freak and the exaltation of the norm. Okay, that's a word that I've never heard before.
Excoriation?
Yeah.
Exaltation? For fuck's sake.
Excoriation. It's like to scar flesh.
I thought it was
particularly
like
painfully.
extracting something, but okay.
Yeah, there's a Night Lord's battle cruiser called the Excoriator in 40k.
Nice. That's much better than that.
So
Yeah,
what
it's
it
mentioned
means,
in Throne of Lies.
so it means off skin. It refers to a place where your skin is scraped or abraded.
Yeah, basically.
So burn marks.
That is just not even a good use of that word. What is wrong with you?
I have heard people use that term in terms of criticism.
Fair enough.
The exaltation of this argument is absolutely terrible.
Granted, I've heard that term in the context of criticism, mostly from Razorfist, who has much better read than this dude.
Clearly. Having returned to the example of freaks, however, it is equally apparent that the history I've sketched thus far is incompletely attuned to the ambiguity, ambivalence implicit in Acts of Freaks exhibition. Consider, in this respect, the theater passage from Travis. If, in one respect, the Freaks vision suggests an assimilative model of social orthodoxy, by the same token, the theatrical vision opens up the possibility of exposing the production of social reality as pure stagecraft, a performance in which the freak plays a formative role. It is this possibility that informs modern critical thinking on the freak, in the words of Albert Bogdan, whose 1988 book Freak Show instituted the social construction study of the freak. Freak is a state of mind, a state of practices, a way of thinking about and presenting people. It is the enactment of tradition, the performance of a stylized presentation. It is this possibility, perhaps, that accounts for the aspect of freaks most often denounced. Casting real sideshow performers, such as conjoined twins Daisy and Violet Hamilton, to play themselves, the film dramatizes the theatrical nature of the freak. And it is this unwanted or unwanted possibility that dances at the margins of freak discourse all along, surfacing in such places as over-the-top staginess of the monstrous Earth's production, or, to cite another example, in The Fears of Pierre, are a freak interpreter come entrepreneur, that this undeserving indigent might be riding the culture's morbid fascination with monsters by counterfeiting the role for profit. Intriguingly, as Norton Wright notes, some of the earliest works produced by the American film industry, followed by Paray in decrying the supposed plague of beggarly freak performances, first appearing in Thomas Edison's Freak Beggar. The image of beggars, especially those with fake disabilities, visualize the prospect of social misidentification in such moments of disclosure. The truism that Thompson articulates peeks through. What we assume to be a freak of nature is instead a freak of culture, a social mantra rather than a divine mandate. Okay.
Fucking hell.
Why is he going off? That's his purpose.
Okay, to roughly summarize what we've been going through thus far, the idea is that Bellin is wagging his finger at society because he thinks everybody else looks at old freak shows from the 30s as if they're going, oh, look at that ugly monstrosity. It's a good thing I'm not like that.
As well as
because clearly Bellin can read your soul.
As well as the fact that this is brought into cinema.
Bellin knows what you did last summer.
Bellin knows what you had for dinner. You horrible, horrible monster.
Bellin knows when you fap.
He stares at you at the middle of the night.
He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake.
He knows when you orgasm and
Oh
Although-
god.
Not even modern. Like this is like the furthest he goes is 2005. That's when this was published. Indeed, however far-flung such revelatory moments may be, the possibility of the freak show's self-exposure is inherent in the nature of the case.
How is this brought to the modern cinema? Well, you need a lot more better text, otherwise people will fall asleep in it.
He's kind of shotgunning all over the place. Like, talks about the Elephant Man. He references the Batman movies.
God damn.
There's all sort of things. Indeed.
Nobody tell him about the Eugene storyline the Monday Night Raw did.
Mhm.
What? The Eugene?
You remember Eugene?
No. Let's keep going. We have
Okay.
I guess we could just do 10 pages today, and we'll try to do about 20 next time.
20 next time. Please, just
Or
go
ma-
10 each time. It's
Fair
much
enough.
more better.
Fair enough. For if I have maintained the freak is not a stable, integral part of, integral entity or identity, but a function of social seeing, then the very rituals necessary to produce this figure for mass cultural consumption invariably teeter on the verge of announcing their own artifice. In this sense, freak shows might be considered examples of liminal experience, anthropologist Victor Turner's term for ritual performances that institute ambiguity and paradox, confusion.
Liminal experience.
Okay,
You should say minimal experience.
artifice.
Was it
liminal
minimal experience?
No, it's liminal.
Liminal. So that's why
Liminal.
you just say somebody join the Navy.
Mhm.
Not like
Yes,
"Join the
liminal.
Navy," or join the Navy.
This coincidence of opposite processes and notions is in a single representation. Turner continues, characterizes the particular unity of the liminal, that which is neither this nor that, and yet is both. In such a threshold/site where customary categories are suspended, transgressed, and unmasked as the contrivances they are, the possibility exists for reevaluation, reformation, indeed revolution of the alienating processes on which the freak show relies. It is because of the freak show's paradoxical genealogy, the incarnate performed, or the performative incarnate, the awareness may always dawn in the freak show that all is spectacle and signification. That instead of seeing things, one is really only seeing things. Okay.
You see things, yes. Seeing things, yes. Seeing things you see, yes.
So basically,
see.
basically, so how the sentence is structured is that instead of seeing italics things, one is really only italics seeing things.
Well,
The whole thing doesn't make any sense. This whole book is just
Why are we
contrived
reading
So
this
nonsense.
if you're not actually going to a freak show, you're just hallucinating.
Don't worry, the shrooms will just kick in after an hour.
Mhm. I do not want to push this claim too far. It is proven all too tempting to homogenize and romanticize the liminal. Okay, there's a footnote in the back. Let me see what kind of nonsense he puts out.
Note
How
to
many
self.
footnotes have there been thus far?
There's been a few.
A few. We've been like 10 pages in, and there's been a few. He's had barely more paragraphs, but
Apparently it's 17.
17 notes.
Most of them are just like a tiny paragraph. Someone gave him a thesaurus, probably.
it's like, please tell me some of those notes are meant to back up his apparently bunk until proven otherwise history.
Or just casual, like, this is for Article 589, where it's stated that, blah 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 blah. That is so much better. Because now he's technically still talking hot air, which doesn't help at all.
Yeah. To treat it always as always and everywhere a devastating engine of social critique, despite Turner's insistence on the liminal state, might be no more than a way station en route to an affirmation of orthodoxy rendered all the more inexorable by the transitory encounter with chaos. At the same time, however, in my attempt to discover a liberatory pedigree for fantasy film that I have thus far pursued, I follow a lead of performance scholars in avowing the potential of liminoid activity to provide a site for social and cultural resistance and exploration of alternative possibilities. Uh-huh.
I
This
think
is
he might been a little late because especially after it's like the War on Terror started going badly, it's like there was a large cultural push to basically glorify the freak and to fetishize the freak and how the freak was so much better than us. This is like the entire premise of the Call of Duty series.
actually the worst part is Joshua David Bellin has had Spawn.
How?
I don't know either.
I think he put them out of the vat or something, you know.
Yeah.
He went to the nuclear wasteland and put like out of the vat and be like, "Yep, these are my children."
Let me see. He has kids. He's mentioned that before. Yep, he has
As
kids.
a parental figure, I should be very worried about such things. If he would have been a parental figure, I would not allow him, for all children's safety, to tell a story. You know, like, you want to hear a bedtime story about how King Kong is racist? It's like,
Yeah.
The
Where's
Three
bedtime
Little
stories
Pigs and the Racist Wolf enforcing normative hierarchy power structures.
Uh-huh. Oh,
Red Riding Hood.
I know artificial insemination is a thing, but did he just adopt said kids? I would say no.
Who's
far as I
even
know,
asking? I'm not looking at the screen right now.
It's just artificial insemination. His remark was definitely a virgin, laughing my arse off. Artificial insemination is a thing, you know. This is true.
Of course, Trip asked.
You know,
True.
technically, Red Riding Hood and the Wolf of Capitalism would be a very good,
Yeah,
good bedtime
Communist
story.
Riding Hood.
Yeah. Let's keep going. Whatever the case for liminality in general, if there is such a thing, I would argue that certain liminal experiences in certain contexts may serve certain purposes of social evaluation, challenge, and reconstruction. Thus, when in the Tempest, Prospero reclaims Caliban intoning "This thing of darkness I acknowledge mine," he performs the move by owning the freak may disarm the freak show's alienating properties, acknowledging that the thing of darkness in the theater is mine. In the case that this monstrous creature is indeed a projection of his culture's darkest fantasies, Shakespeare's magus and possible dramatic thaumaturgical stand-in draws back the curtain on the machinery of the freak show. And on Shakespeare's stage, Esmole I
highly doubt Shakespeare is making commentary on stuff that happened centuries after him.
Yeah.
Well, he would be definitely spinning in his grave from all of this heresy.
Yeah. Okay, so Shakespeare's stage, as Mulaney reminds us, stood in its physical relationship to the centers of power precisely as the Golden Age freak show and the modern-day movie theater now stand. The place of the stage was a marginal one, and in the world of early modern culture, what such marginality was in itself significant. Lee continues, when Burbage dislocated theater from the city, he established a social and cultural distance that provided the stage with a culturally and ideologically removed vantage point from which it could reflect upon its own age with more freedom and license than had hitherto been impossible. It was a freedom, a range of slightly eccentric and decent-entered perspectives that give the stage an uncanny ability to tease out and represent the contradictions of a culture it both belonged to and was to a certain extent alienated from. Situated on the verge of the acceptable and midway, as it were, between norm and not, the freak show on film, like the theatrical exhibition of the in the Liberties skirting London, or the sideshow's inherent iteration under Barnum, possesses the potential not only to focus the energies of social alienation, but to refocus the alienating lens to alienate itself and its audience from the monstrous social fantasies to which all belong. One last word before I turn to the films. To emphasize the performative nature of the freak, I must make clear is not to suggest that the categories of monstrosity I have considered previously are more natural and therefore less open to revision. However, die-hard distinctions such as black and white or male-female may appear. I would insist that these are as much a function of social ways of seeing as they are expressions of biological fact. Social alienation, as I hope I have made clear throughout this book, is inherently performative. If it appears to have a basis in some ultimate reality beyond the values and judgments of a particular historical culture, that is only because social fantasy, including the fantasy on film, sees it as so. And this being the case, the reader might wish to view my focusing on freak films in this chapter not as a plea for the radical uniqueness of such films, but as a means of advancing a new frame, a new way of seeing, by which to read the signs that have come before. And that's the end of this section.
Well, time to go to bed now. Having nightmares about all of this. Having King Kong under my bed, apparently.
Yeah.
Telling him, like, do you know this man? He framed us all. He framed us.
Oh,
We was Kongs.
yeah. So basically, the rest of this chapter is going to be about Edward Scissorhands, of all things, and the 90s Disney movies.
The 90s Disney movies, amazing.
As I recall, wasn't Edward Scissorhands like a tragic figure?
Yeah.
Yeah, like some parts I distinctly remember is like he didn't want to get bugged by anybody, and so he went to his own place where he made like ice sculptures with his scissor hands.
That's quite cool.
Yeah. Well, okay, so what point is he actually... I honestly don't know what point he's trying to make. I don't even know if he has... I think he's just saying that no film is divorced from the political and social feelings of the time. But the contrast to that one...
And he would know that because...
Yeah. Would you be smart enough for that? No.
That it's not okay to showcase freaks in cinema, or that it just happens. I think he's just saying that it just happens. I don't really have any... I can't get a sense of what he's trying to prove. That's one of the major problems I have with Mr. Bellin's writing, because like it has... like the structure of the whole thing is all over the place. It's not well formatted or streamlined. It's a WTF, and he had to use several thousand words to say that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, he has made no points. He's just saying that this exists, and he's making an argument that it exists. He's making no real moral claims. He's just saying this exists.
Yes.
There's no like greater point to this whole thing.
And don't forget, you can see stuff in the CCC lines with the CCC shore.
Mm.
Bellin went to CCC to see what he could see.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah,
Bellin, the one and only true nightmare. Well, I am way too tired for another one. Thank God.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we will definitely call it all that good for today. Thank you guys for sticking around for 2 hours. I appreciate it.
Holy crap.
Yep,
This
10
sucks.
pages, 2 hours. Yeah, definitely.
I could have watched something informative, but no, I had to listen to somebody rambling on about freaks and trying to compare them with monsters, and therefore making everything bad because you watched freaks,
Plus,
and you
there's
should
an
be ashamed.
immense amount of counter examples to this.
Yeah, basically. My hat. I am just spinning around. Fucking hell.
Man, I just.
You know how you could fix all of these problems? Just say that Nurgle is a good guy. He just wants to have hugs and friendships all across the world.
Loves you.
Basically. This guy, I still impressed how the fuck he went to college and how he finished it as well.
Honestly, well, college used to be not as idealistically mismanaged as it is now.
Oh, then you should go to the EU and instantly get your ass whooped because it's not there. Well, it is there, but it's not there like there, like big time.
Our future presidential candidate in the making. Thankfully, no.
My fellow Americans, I am not a crook.
Need to do a fun one. Well, that's a 2-hour video that's mostly talking about how good Lord of the Rings is, which is kind of a obvious fact.
Oh, well, why are we not gonna watch Lord of the Strings? It's even better.
Like, she shared a Lord of the Rings video that's like a long retrospective about the films.
Heck, knowing my YouTube history, I've probably seen it by now.
I still think that the extended version is much better than the cinema version, actually.
Oh yeah, so much more content. So much more meaning.
I saw the uncut version and the cinema version back in the day when it was on the television, and holy shit, that is a lot of difference. A lot is missing in the cinema version, actually. A lot.
Yeah, like I, as a usual cinema goer and somebody who had the cinematic versions before the extended versions, I did not know for the longest time that Aragorn was actually Númenorian. That seems like an important detail.
Yeah, also, I bought the Lord of the Rings editions in Blu-ray, and then I came to the realization it was the cinematic version and not the extended version.
I have one even worse for you. When I got my extended edition, I put in the second disc, and they split each movie into 2 halves. Put in the first disc, watched that through all the way through. Put in the second disc, and it started the first disc again. So I took it out, and I realized that somehow they had managed to bulk it up so badly that my 2 towers had 2 disc 1s in it. I was crushed.
Oh,
I
you
had
have
popcorn.
you have the best part double. Like you have 2 times the most important chapter actually, double, but only the first part, so you never will be able to see the. Oh, that's such a shame.
I had popcorn.
I
I
wanted
had
it to see
popcorn
it.
for the second one. Why, Amazon? Why?
And so it begins.
And part of me was not just worried about mine. Some other poor bastard out there has 2 part 2s.
Oh God.
True. Just pick out. I don't know if I don't know if it's. I don't know how worth it would be necessarily.
Yeah, it's over 20 years old. Pretty much everybody's already discussed it to death anyway. I mean, do you really want our take on the whole Christopher Lee telling people, do you know what it's like when people get stabbed in the back? Because I do. I think everybody knows that story.
Yeah,
And
That's
all
actually
the
quite
others.
cool.
Like where Viggo Mortensen broke his foot.
or
Wasn't
he knocked.
Wasn't he not also? Wasn't the guy that played Saruman actually not also the inspiration for James Bond?
Yes, he
Because-
was.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just thinking. Like, I don't really know. Like, if we're just reacting to a video that has already done the research and put in a lot of stuff, like, I don't really feel like it's necessary for us to commentate on it since they've already done the commentary. The only times where it's interesting commentary if we actively disagree with the points that are being made.
And if the points are being made in a cartoonishly poor manner.
Yeah, I'm aware that he was allergic. Yeah,
I know he was allergic.
yeah,
Yes, Gimli was allergic to the thing.
yeah. A lot of the behind the scenes stuff was gone over it by actually a podcast.
I believe even the behind the
School of
scene was
Movies.
actually streamed on on television back in the day.
Yeah,
my
a lot of
also-
people suffered for that art, but at least they can rest easy knowing that they released the best thing cinema has ever seen till today.
Well, it's called discussion. I'm just like,
If you want to have a chill stream with friends, just play Jack in the Box. That is a
Jack
chill
Box,
game.
yeah. I'm just not sure what the point would be or what we would really get out of it necessarily, or what the point would be. Like, it's like, yeah, it's a good video, and I'll watch it on my own at 2x speed. So I can.
Speed.
But I don't know what the point of reacting to a lot of this, of reacting to it on stream would be. I don't really see much point in that.
Arg! Yes, the pirate has spoken.
Well, you could just have fun while streaming. Like, we've already discussed the Lord of the Rings films and discussed a lot of the making of stuff. So it's not that we don't want to have fun. It's just that there's no point, because if this is a good video and there's good stuff about it, it's not terribly isn't a react stream. Yeah, well, it's just like, I'm fine. Well, it's just watching, like, having a video on stream doesn't really, like, watching the video just doesn't.
Yeah,
Well-
having fun on stream is what the Dawn of War streams are for.
Yeah.
And that's a topic for another day.
Yes, Daka needs to be continuing there.
Oh, so no, it's not that your recommendation is pointless. It's just that I don't see a point in it.
If you beat a dead horse,
video.
is
Yeah.
it still a dead horse then? Yes, that's the main point.
Like, the behind the scenes of Game of Thrones was interesting because of how hilariously they mismanaged things by their incompetence.
Yeah, we kind of forgot about the whole.
White Cloaks and Prophet get a lot of views. They don't react, as far as I am aware, they don't react to like good videos. They mostly will just put videos. They will mostly just chat with their viewers, which we don't get many of. And like the Lord of the Rings, like, well, one, there's a couple reasons. Another reason, they chill stream a lot, yes, but I even just as a chill stream, I don't really see a point in doing that, especially since I don't really want to take views away from this this particular YouTuber because they seem like they're a good video. You might get more, but fair enough. But maybe. But I'm just saying that like that just seems like a poor topic for even a chill stream. I don't really. I think that that's. I don't really see that as necessary. That
Yeah.
that reviewing that video is necessary. I think that the video stands on its own, and I'm like, I don't particularly want to take away views from this. I'm okay with ripping off ridiculous people like Maggie May Fish, Rafe Judkins, etc. But I just don't see a point in taking a look at that video on stream. I'll watch it during my own time, but I don't think I'll ever respond to it on stream. I don't think there's a point to it. There's not a purpose to it. Yeah, sorry, I don't see a point. There would be very little commentary or insight that we could put into it. It would just be watching the video. Like, well, just that video. I'm just like, what's like? It's only like watching videos on stream is only really interesting if you vehemently disagree, or even if you just somewhat disagree. Like that's the point.
Or if it's something you agree with, but it's novel.
Yeah.
Yes.
Versus something that's been talked about to death.
I am going home now.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
Okay.
All right, enjoy.
I think that we'll call it good for today. This was interesting. It was definitely like it's basically like empty word salad, the book. But definitely we will call it good for today. Thank you guys so much for coming. Adios.
Bye.